From the intense stare down that the UFC president had to break off, to the disrespectful headshot gesture during introduction, these are some of the best moments from Usman vs. Edwards' UFC 286 presser, starting with the pre-fight conference trash talk. Both Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards had been pretty respectful to each other during the build-up, but I guess the fight week really got the best of them this time around. As the massive title fight at UFC 286 was rapidly approaching, altercations between the two had already begun, though there were heated verbal exchanges and trash talks. A fight's a fight, and we loved every second of it. Plus, the former welterweight champion has done a fantastic job imitating Edwards' Birmingham accent in the presser. What made this trash talk even more amazing was the fact that Usman and Leon Edwards are two fighters on the UFC roster who are notoriously tight-lipped in the lead-up to their bouts. While other competitors will do anything to get under the skin of their opponents, these two gentlemen prefer to let their actions in the ring speak for themselves. But boy, was it fun to see them take jabs at each other without using their hands. As a result, fans were taken aback when the two began a heated verbal exchange during the UFC 286 press conference in London, and it really started to get the fans all hyped. But honestly, to me, the highlight was when Usman claimed Edwards would call him extraordinary. Well, in all fairness, Leon Edwards completely turned Usman's life upside down, so it makes sense that he's out for revenge. And despite Edwards' increased self-assurance, Usman is convinced that he will immediately recapture the 170-pound crown. But things rarely work out the way we want, do they? Anyway, coming back, I wasn't really expecting the Nigerian Nightmare to be this good at talking trash. The press conference started pretty normal, with both fighters taking turns talking about the fight and each other. But to say that both of these fighters received the same fan reception would be inequitable. Well, if I'm being honest, this was to be expected. The London fans were hyped for their countrymen, while Usman was booed constantly from the start. But it's the Nigerian Nightmare we're talking about. The guy kept calm and focused even during their heated exchanges. Usman literally didn't give a single reaction to the boos. That just makes the trash talk all the more amazing, honestly. Usman asked Leon what's his excuse for the first fight, and the British fighter replied, asking Kamaru what his excuse was for the head kick he got during their last bout. As you'd expect, a roar of approval erupted from the crowd, but my guy Usman brought big guns. He said that there's no excuse, exquisite skill, and that his hands dropped and you landed. Right before asking Rocky what was his excuse for the 3 rounds before getting his head beat in. Usman even tried his best to imitate Edwards' corner, dishing out advice during their second fight. Mimicking the Birmingham accent, the Nigerian yelled, "Come on, Rocky. You're letting him pick on you, son. You're being picked on, son. Son, don't let him pick on you. Rocky, get your head out of your butt." Even though you could almost feel the tension building, the exchange nevertheless managed to be somewhat comical. Let's be honest now, that was a W for the Nigerian Nightmare. Usman won 0 to Rocky. A great addition to the hype for this fight. Speaking of which, the hype around this fight was insane. The Usman vs. Edwards trilogy is probably one of the biggest fights in welterweight history.
It's a very big moment for him.
No doubt.
Because maybe that deters Usman from taking multiple attacks. You started the Colby Covington fight. Oh,
he made a mistake.
Yep, made a mistake. Now the champ's on top.
Edwards not only put an end to their feud, but he also secured his place as, pound for pound, the best fighter of all time. Leon Edwards' knockout victory over Kamaru Usman at UFC 278 stunned the mixed martial arts world back in 2022, and the buzz around these two fighters marginally increased. As a result, the stakes were high for both combatants, and both felt the pressure of this fight rising with every passing day. And Edwards pulled off that amazing feat yet again. The second time these two fighters faced each other, Usman appeared to be winning, which wasn't a surprise, considering the Nigerian Nightmare had successfully defended his title 5 times before. So Edwards knocking him out with a high kick heard round the world and terminating his tenure as champion really had fans holding their heads. But in the world of combat sports, there is a proverb that goes something like, "A fighter isn't a true champion until he defends his belt." So you can imagine what Edwards was feeling going into that ring. No wonder he was ruthless. useless. Well, there was no other option, especially after Edwards' strong message to Kamaru during his press conference at UFC 286. He said that we have completely different perspectives. According to him, Kamaru is on his way out, and he'll open that door for him, which the Nigerian obviously denied, but the damage had been done. So, 1-1 then? Anyway, all the hype, the pressure, and the trash talk was intense, but they still don't compare to their final face-off, as Dana White had to separate the duo. Yes, you've heard that right. The first stare down after the pre-fight presser was intense, but compared to their final one, it seemed innocent. In the main event of UFC 286 in London's O2 Arena, the Nigerian Nightmare took on the welterweight champion Edwards, and Edwards was all business during the fight, as he went on to retake his title against the Nigerian. The two were polite to each other leading up to this match, but that has since changed. I mean, think of the impact this fight had on both men. After the heated press conference on Thursday, where both men threw verbal jabs at each other, a tense stare-down followed. And at the official weigh-ins at the O2 Arena, they had a second one. Fans of the O2 loved how tense things were between the two. The 35-year-old Usman had to deal with boos when he got on the scales, but he loved it. On the other hand, people in the crowd chanted, "Rocky, Rocky, Rocky," as Edwards tipped the scale for the last pre-fight ritual. But things got a little out of hand when the two tried to get a little too close to each other. The noise level in the arena reached a fever pitch, and eventually UFC President Dana White had to stop them from getting too close. The best part of all of this is the fact that Edwards took another jab at Usman. He said that even on his worst day, and when he wasn't at his best, he was still able to knock him out. Ouch! Usman won, 2 to Edwards. It seems like after that first great jab, the Nigerian Nightmare fell behind, as Edwards stole this next moment as well. Now that the final chapter in the legendary trilogy between Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman has come to an end, and the fact that Rocky was able to defend the welterweight champion proved that he's the Nigerian's kryptonite. The British MMA artist won via unanimous decision because of his outstanding takedown defense and barrage of leg kicks. As we already know that prior to their battle, there was a lot of trash talk between the two of them, so it's no surprise that both of them wouldn't want to miss any opportunity to get one over on each other. It was clear that Edwards' confidence had grown since he became the first man to dethrone Usman. So, when tensions rose during Bruce Buffer's introductions for the bout, Rocky was ready to steal the moment. And one specific moment has been labeled as one of the coldest in UFC history. As usual, the former champion went straight up to his opponent as the Englishman's introductions were being read. Usman uses this as a standard method of intimidation, but this time around, Edwards was prepared. Rocky decided to imitate the iconic headshot that sent Usman down in their second fight. He pulled out the hang trigger as the Nigerian Nightmare moved close to Edwards' face. Many UFC fans went crazy over the moment before the fight, and honestly, Edwards deserved it. He proved to be the better man inside and outside the ring. Well, those were some of the best moments from the Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman presser.